And let me tell you something uncomfortable. Something nobody likes to say out loud. Helping others feels noble. It feels right. It feels like strength. But nobody talks about the price you pay when you help the wrong people, for the wrong reasons, at the wrong time. And today, I'm going to tell you the truth about the shocking cost of helping others, a truth most people learn too late. You see, the world teaches you that being selfless automatically makes you good, that sacrificing yourself makes you honorable. But here's the reality, and when you help people who refuse to help themselves, you are not being kind, you are being used. And the cost isn't small. It's your time, your energy, your focus, and your ambition. Slowly, piece by piece, you give away the very things that could have built your own life. I've seen it happen again and again, and talented people with massive potential stuck in the same place for years because they're busy saving everyone else. They lend money they can't afford to lose, and they give advice that's never followed. They show up for people who disappear the moment things get hard. And one day they wake up tired, bitter, and confused, and wondering why nobody ever shows up for them. Here's the hard truth: most people don't want help. They want comfort. They don't want solutions. They want sympathy. And if you keep providing that, you become their excuse to stay weak. Your kindness becomes their crutch. And while you're carrying them, you're not moving forward yourself. Helping others before you've built yourself, trying to save someone from drowning while you're barely floating, and you both go under. Strength first, stability first, success first. Then, only then, can you help without destroying yourself in the process. And let me say this clearly, and not everyone deserves access to you. Your time is valuable. Your energy is priceless. Every yes to someone else is a no to your own growth. And discipline means knowing when to walk away. Self-respect means understanding that being available to everyone makes you valuable to no one. And most people think that when someone asks for help, it means they are ready to change. That assumption is dangerous. Because in reality, many people don't want transformation, they want relief. They don't want to face the discomfort of growth, and they want someone to sit beside them and tell them it's not their fault. And the moment you step into that role without realizing it, you stop being helped, and you become permission to stay the same. Here's the hook you need to hear: if your help removes pain without demanding responsibility, you are not empowering anyone, and you are training them to remain weak. People say they want solutions, but when solutions require discipline, sacrifice, and personal accountability, most of them back away. And what they truly want is emotional anesthesia, temporary comfort that quiets their anxiety, while leaving the root problem untouched. And think about how often advice is repeated to the same person, again and again, with no action taken. Same complaints, same excuses, same cycle. At that point, the issue is no longer a lack of guidance, it's a lack of commitment. And every time you show up with empathy but no boundaries, you reinforce that pattern. And you teach them that they can avoid responsibility and still receive support. This is where people get trapped. They believe staying involved proves loyalty or kindness. But loyalty to someone's stagnation is not virtue, it's sabotage, both theirs and yours. The more you absorb their problems, the less energy you have to invest in your own growth. Slowly, resentment builds, even if you don't admit it out loud. You feel drained, undervalued, and confused about why nothing ever changes. The uncomfortable truth is that people only change when discomfort outweighs convenience. And when you constantly soften that discomfort, you delay their growth. Real help challenges. Real help creates friction, and real help sometimes walks away and lets reality do the teaching. Most people treat time and energy like they're unlimited, and as if tomorrow is guaranteed and focus is renewable on demand. It isn't. Every hour you give away thoughtlessly is an hour you will never recover, and every ounce of emotional energy you spend solving someone else's problems is energy you don't get back for your own life. That's the first hook most people miss, and you are not selfish for protecting what is finite. Watch what happens when you overextend yourself. Your goals slow down, your discipline weakens, your standards drop, and not because you lack ability, but because your attention is scattered. Success demands deep focus, and focus cannot exist in a life where you are constantly on call for everyone else's emergencies. And you can't build momentum when your mental space is crowded with problems that aren't yours to carry. Here's the uncomfortable reality, and people who casually waste your time rarely value it. They don't see the late nights you lose, the stress you absorb, or the mental fatigue you normalize. To them, and your availability feels free. But to you, it quietly becomes expensive. And the bill always shows up later in the form of burnout, frustration, and missed opportunities. And another hook most people ignore is this: saying yes too often trains people to expect access, not appreciate effort. When your time has no boundaries, and it loses perceived value. The same people who lean on you today will question your worth tomorrow when you finally say no. That's not betrayal, and that's a predictable outcome of overgiving. High performers understand something critical. They schedule their energy before they spend it. They protect their mornings, and their focus, and their emotional bandwidth because they know progress is built in silence, not in constant rescue mode. If you want a different life, and you have to treat your time like an investment, not a donation. There's a powerful lie people believe when it comes to helping others, and it sounds noble on the surface. And the lie is that struggle qualifies you to save someone else. It doesn't. If you are unstable, exhausted, or still fighting to control your own direction, and stepping into someone else's chaos doesn't make you heroic, it makes the situation dangerous for both of you. That's the first hook you need to face, and good intentions do not create strength. Picture someone drowning. Now picture yourself barely staying afloat. When you reach for them without solid ground beneath you, and panic takes over. They grab, they pull, and suddenly you're both sinking. This is exactly what happens in real life when you try to help from a place of weakness, and you absorb their stress, their doubt, their habits, and their excuses, while your own foundation cracks under the weight. And people underestimate how fragile momentum really is. When you are trying to build discipline, confidence, or stability, and it takes very little disruption to knock you off course. Helping from weakness introduces constant interruption. Your focus breaks. Your routine collapses. And your progress slows. And instead of lifting someone else up, you quietly fall back to where you started. Here's another hook most people avoid, and struggling together does not create strength. It multiplies limitation. Two people lost in confusion don't find direction by leaning on each other. And direction comes from someone who has already walked the path and learned how to stand steady under pressure. Without that, advice becomes theory, and support becomes emotional venting, and effort turns into shared frustration. Real help requires capacity, emotional capacity, mental clarity, and financial and physical stability. When you have those, your presence calms instead of absorbs chaos. Your words carry weight because they come from experience, not hope. And until then, the most responsible move isn't to rescue. It's to build yourself quietly, consistently, and without apology. And most people don't realize that generosity without limits isn't kindness. It's self-neglect disguised as virtue. It starts small, answering every call, fixing every problem, and showing up even when you're exhausted. It feels right at first. It feels like loyalty. But here's the hook that changes everything. If your giving leaves you empty, and it was never healthy to begin with. Boundaries are not walls, they are standards. And when you refuse to set them, you teach people that your needs come last. Over time, and that message sinks in, not just for them, but for you. You begin to normalize overextension. You silence your instincts. You ignore fatigue, resentment, and frustration because you're afraid that saying no will make you look cold or selfish. In reality, the opposite is happening, and you're quietly training yourself to accept disrespect. Discipline is the ability to act in alignment with long-term growth, and even when short-term emotions pull you in another direction. Saying no is uncomfortable because it breaks expectations, and people who benefit from your overgiving will resist it. They may question your character, your loyalty, even your heart. That reaction is the hook most people miss, and it reveals who valued you for who you are and who valued you for what you provide. Without boundaries, kindness becomes a slow erosion of self-respect, and you lose control of your schedule. Your priorities blur. Your goals stay postponed because someone else's urgency always feels louder than your own purpose, and the longer this continues, the harder it becomes to recognize yourself. You're busy, but you're not progressing. You're involved, but you're not fulfilled. And true generosity is intentional, not impulsive. It has structure. It has limits. It operates from strength, not guilt. When you protect your time, your energy, and your focus, you don't become less compassionate, you become more effective. Because the people who truly matter will respect your boundaries, and the ones who don't were never respecting you to begin with. Most people believe that the more they sacrifice, the more they will be respected. That belief feels moral and even honorable, but it's deeply flawed. Here's the hook that cuts through the illusion: people don't admire what costs you everything. They admire what you had to earn, and respect is not built on how much you give away. It's built on the strength rate by what you protect. When you constantly put yourself last, and you send a silent message, not of humility, but of low self-worth. You teach others that your time, your goals, and your limits are flexible, negotiable, and ultimately less important than theirs. Over time, that perception hardens. People stop asking what you need. They stop noticing your effort. Not because they're cruel, but because you trained them to see your sacrifice as normal. Strength changes that dynamic instantly. When you focus on building discipline, structure, and personal standards, something shifts. Your words carry more weight. Your absence is felt. Your presence is respected. People don't lean on you as a default, and they approach you with intention. That's not arrogance, that's earned authority. Another uncomfortable hook is this: sacrifice without results looks like desperation, and not virtue. When you give endlessly but your life shows no progress, people subconsciously question your judgment. They may still take what you offer, but they won't follow your advice. Respect follows evidence, not effort. Strong individuals don't beg to be valued, and they become valuable by building themselves relentlessly. They don't explain their boundaries, they live by them. And because of that, when they do choose to give, and it carries impact, people listen, people change, people grow. The harsh truth that respect is rarely granted to those who disappear into self-sacrifice, and it's given to those who stand tall, grounded in self-respect, and choose when and how they contribute, without apology and without needing validation. And most people give because they feel obligated. They help because they're afraid of disappointing others, afraid of being judged, afraid of looking selfish. But here's the hook that reframes everything: help given from guilt is never pure, and it never lasts, and it drains you quietly while convincing you that exhaustion is the price of being a good person. And there is a massive difference between giving from abundance and giving from emptiness. When you haven't built stability, financially, emotionally, mentally, and every act of help costs you something critical. You feel it in your focus, your patience, and your progress. But when your life is structured, and when your discipline is strong, and when your direction is clear, helping others doesn't weaken you. It amplifies you. People who give from power don't rescue. They guide, and they don't absorb chaos, they bring clarity. Their advice is respected because it's backed by results. Their support creates movement, not dependence. And that's another hook most people miss: impact comes from example, not sacrifice. Putting yourself first isn't selfish, it's strategic. It creates leverage. And when your foundation is solid, your presence alone raises standards. You don't need to over-explain or overextend. Your boundaries are understood without being announced. And when you choose to help, it's intentional, measured, and effective. Giving from abundance also removes resentment. There's no hidden anger, and no unspoken expectation of gratitude, no emotional debt. You help because you can, not because you feel trapped. And that freedom changes the quality of everything you offer. The strongest people in the world are not the ones who give the most blindly, and they are the ones who built themselves so thoroughly that when they give, it changes trajectories. Not temporarily, permanently. So here's the lesson. And stop confusing kindness with weakness. Stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. Build your body, build your mind, build your life. Become strong, focused, and independent. And when you help from a position of power, not guilt. Because the real tragedy isn't that you didn't help everyone, and the real tragedy is helping everyone and becoming nothing yourself.